Why didn't Gandalf the Grey, a literal immortal angelic being, a master of fire and light, and one of the wisest entities to ever walk the earth, just reach out and take the One Ring from Frodo's hand and solve the entire problem in about a weekend? It's the question that has haunted casual fans for decades at this point. And really think about it here. Gandalf is more powerful, more experienced, and understands the machine of the Dark Lord Sauron better than almost anyone else in Middle Earth. So why on earth would the fate of the entire world be placed into the hands of a 3 foot tall hobbit who had never left his backyard instead of one of the most capable beings alive? And the reason why is because J.R.R. Tolkien believed in a terrifying fundamental truth. The greatest evil is not hatred, it is the desire to do good through absolute power. And Gandalf understood that better than anyone in the Legendarium. He knew that the moment he claimed the One Ring, he wouldn't just be defeating Sauron, he will be replacing him. And he was afraid of becoming a cackling, mustache twirling villain. He was afraid of becoming something arguably worse, a righteous tyrant, a godlike ruler who genuinely believed he was saving the world while simultaneously suffocating it. And once you understand Tolkien's philosophy regarding power, the nature of war, and the corruptibility of the human and angelic spirit, you realize that Gandalf refusing the ring isn't just a plot device. It is the single most important, most self-aware moment in the entire history of Middle Earth. So, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Lore Version. This is the channel where we autopsy the lore, the mythology, and the hidden philosophies inside of content. And we are looking at the profound subtext beyond the greatest stories ever told. And today we are diving deep into the most pivotal scene in The Lord of the Rings. We are talking about why Gandalf the Grey, a being of immense authority, walked away from the ultimate weapon. This scene is a masterclass in moral philosophy. It touches on war, technology, politics, religion, and the fragility of free will. And honestly, the more you study Tolkien, his time in the trenches, and his disdain for the industrialized quote unquote machine, the more terrifying this scene makes sense. So let's dive into this. Now, let's set the stage. The Fellowship of the Ring, right? Bag-End, Frodo, innocent and wary, offers the ring to Gandalf. It's a moment of pure, naive hope. And for a split second, the air changes. Gandalf doesn't refuse. He erupts in a visceral, terrifying display of fear. Do not tempt me. It is one of the most chilling moments in the trilogy because for a heartbeat, we see that the kindly fireworks loving wizard is capable of being a monster. He explains that if he took the ring, he would gain a power too great and terrible to imagine. And he isn't talking about becoming a monster in the way Sauron is a monster. He is actually talking about the horror of moral certainty. He's afraid of becoming convinced that evil acts are necessary for the greater good. That is the true insidious nature of the ring. It doesn't just corrupt you by making you cruel, it corrupts you by weaponizing your virtues. And we often think of the ring as a corrupting force that simply makes you evil. That's a massive oversimplification. The ring is a predatory mirror. It doesn't just put desires into your heart, but what it does is it finds your existing deepest motivations and twists them into something unrecognizable. So if you want an example, right? Boromir wanted to save Gondor through annihilation. Galadriel wanted to preserve the wisdom and beauty of the elves. Saruman wanted to bring order and stability to a chaotic world. And Gandalf, he genuinely deeply loves the people of Middle Earth. That is his greatest strength. And that is exactly what makes him so vulnerable. And so the ring would whisper to him, you have the power to save them. You can stop the war. You can end hunger. You can force peace. You can destroy Sauron. And it wouldn't start with a scream. It would start with a whisper of duty. Gandalf would start by justifying more control, more oversight, and more force, not because he hates people, but because he loves them too much to let them suffer. And what the ring does is it corrupts the very concept of morality. And here is the nightmare scenario, right? Tolkien himself stated that Gandalf probably would have succeeded. In his letters, particularly letter 246, Tolkien explicitly talks about the fact that Gandalf possessed the inherent power to overthrow Sauron if he wielded the One Ring. But as Tolkien noted, that victory would be the ultimate disaster. Gandalf would have replaced Sauron as the new Dark Lord. And Tolkien adds a detail that should keep you up at night. Sauron at least appears evil. His tyranny is transparent, but a corrupted Gandalf, he will make evil look righteous. So imagine a world where Gandalf the White enforces the perfect order. No war, no rebellion, and no chaos, but also no dissent. no individuality, no freedom, everything controlled and perfected for our own good. A world without the possibility of error is a world without the possibility of grace. And people would have accepted that tyranny willingly, never realizing they had lost their souls until it was far too late. And this does reflect on Tolkien's deepest, most visceral political fear, which is a righteous tyrant. He lived through the age of ideology. He saw the rise of philosophical systems. He seen nationalism, industrial warfare, propaganda, where leaders promise safety and progress while creating literal hellscapes. And Tolkien deeply distrusted centralized power. He understands that the desire to dominate is inherently corruptive, regardless of how noble your intentions are at the starting line. And by refusing the ring, Gandalf is making a theological and philosophical stand. He recognizes that absolute power destroys moral clarity. And if you use the ring to do good, you have already lost. So the means dictate the end. So this brings another question, right? Why Frodo? Why not Aragorn or Elrond or even Galadriel? And it's because hobbits are the only ones who lack grand ambition. The ring feeds on dreams of empires, kingdoms, and glory. But hobbits, they want food. They want a comfortable chair, a well-tended garden, and a quiet pint at the prancing pony. And the lack of desire makes them spiritually slippery. They are incredibly difficult for the ring to hook. Frodo doesn't want to conquer Middle-earth. He just wants to go home. Samwise Gamgee, when tempted by the ring, imagines turning Mordor into one giant garden. It's such a simple, humble desire that the ring effectively has no leverage. And Tolkien believed that humility was our only real defense against the encroaching darkness of the quote-unquote machine. And if you want to know what would have happened to Gandalf, look at Sauron. They are of the same order, right? They both were sent to Middle-earth to oppose the Shadow. But Sauron fell because he became obsessed with studying the enemy. He thought he could be the smartest person in the room. He thought he could outsmart Sauron by using Sauron's own methods. And Sauron convinced himself that he could use evil techniques to achieve a good goal. And that is the fatal error, because Sauron became the very thing he set out to destroy. Gandalf's fear of the ring is essentially a fear of becoming Sauron. Wisdom isn't just knowing stuff, but wisdom is recognizing your own capacity of self-deception. And Tolkien often wrote about, the machine. And this is a term that he used to describe the industrialization and the force of systems that dominated the nature of his time. And Sauron is the ultimate manifestation of the machine. Mass production, factories, efficiency without a soul, and the total subordination of the individual to the system. And the ring is the ultimate tool of the machine. It is the power to impose your own will on reality itself. And Tolkien didn't hate technology. He hated the obsession with controlling everything. And the Shire is the antithesis of the machine. It is simple, rooted, and organic. And that is why hobbits are the only ones who can carry the burden, because they are the only ones who don't want to run the world. So Tolkien's worldview was deeply Catholic, and he believed that history isn't saved by the powerful, but by the ordinary. And Gandalf says at one point, Bilbo was meant to find the ring. That is the defining theological statement of the story. It isn't fate and it isn't luck, it's providence. Tolkien believed that history is guided by something greater than raw power. It is saved by ordinary people choosing mercy and sacrifice when they have every reason to do the opposite. And the war isn't won by the armies of men and wizards. It is won by a hobbit's pity towards Gollum, because Frodo and Bilbo showed mercy and Gollum was there at the end. That mercy, that refusal to play the game of domination is the only thing that breaks the machine. And even the fact that Frodo fails at the end, that he does succumb to the ring at Mount Doom, is the most honest moment in the book. It reminds us that no one, not even the most humble among us, is fully immune to the corrupting influence of absolute power. But it was that prior act of mercy that saved everything. Gandalf refusing the ring is his greatest act of heroism, because it is an act of restraint. He understands that the moment someone decides they alone know what is best for everyone else, the path to darkness is already paved. Every generation thinks that they can will power correctly, and every empire thinks it is a good one. Tolkien warns us that the belief in your own moral immunity is the first symptom of the rot. And Gandalf refusing the ring is the ultimate act of wisdom. It teaches us that morality matters more than victory, and that the greatest leaders are those who refuse the crown when it is offered to them. The One Ring doesn't just tempt you to do evil, it tempts you to be certain. And Tolkien knew that certainly, absolute, unshakable certainty is where the darkness truly begins for Gandalf. But what do you guys think? If Gandalf had taken the ring, do you think he could have held on to his goodness for even a week? or would he have fallen as quickly as Saruman? Could anyone in Middle Earth really resist the ring forever, or was Frodo the only possible choice? Let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to hit the subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know whenever the Loreverse page uploads. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay crispy and peace out.